Hey guys, what's up? Lewin here at Garageband and Beyond. Welcome back for episode 5 of How to Record and Now Mix a Song Like a Pro, where you guys are just watching me record one of my own songs using the methods that I do to get the results that I do out of Garageband 10. Now, as we begin the mixing part of this process, I do want to start out by saying that a lot of what you're about to see is the Slate digital plugins from their Everything bundle. I highly recommend it. This is in no way, shape, or form a paid endorsement. I love those Slate digital plugins, especially if you're on GarageBand 10. I made a video a while ago called GarageBand Pro, where I basically said if you get these plugins, you are ramping up your abilities so much on GarageBand that the gap between GarageBand and Logic and Pro Tools or whatever it may be is a lot more narrow once you get those Slate digital plugins going. It's a monthly subscription thing, totally worth it and very inexpensive and affordable. That's all I'm going to say about that. Check it out, slatedigital.com. So here we go. Let's get right into the mixing process. I've already started doing some of it, and that is basically turning everything down, all the way down. Everything except the drums, right? So here on the left, I'm just going up. And like I said, I started this earlier, so you didn't have to watch me do all of them. Here's the scratch track, which I just don't need anymore. So I'm just going to say delete, and that's gone. Okay, so here we go. So one thing that I have done that saves a lot of time for me is, obviously I'm going to be using the same microphones and the same instruments every single time I record in my studio. Or I might change this microphone or that microphone, but basically I'll be using the same basic instruments every single time. So I have made presets for myself, which just drop in exactly what I want. So in the case of this, right, this bass track, and I'll just show you, it's all on, but it's called Lewin Bass, or I could be also Lewin GNL 3, is actually probably where it should be. So we're going to do that, and you'll see that it actually just dropped in all the stuff that I like to use, which is the typical bass amp. And let me just show you. It's this guy right here. Microphone, all that kind of stuff. And then on the virtual mix side, which is when we start getting into the Slate digital, it's this guy right here. Okay. So this right here, the virtual channel, is one of the biggest missing components of GarageBand 10 or GarageBand in general. We never had a virtual meter of any kind. So now we do, using this Everything plugin, or using this virtual channel rather. So what I like to do with this is, here, let's actually just solo out this bass part for a second. I'm going to hit play. Okay. So when I first opened this, it's usually set to 0 and 0. Well, more or less 0. Let's just say 0, 0. And then this is usually linked. So as I decrease the channel input, it increases the output to things like the EQ and the compressor, right? This is very normal, typical stuff you would do. However, depending on your signal, you might not always want them connected. So I tend to unlink them. So what I do is typically this. Okay, so I'm looking, basically, I don't want the needle going up into the red at all. So that might be a little too much. Okay, good. That I can live with. Okay, so you can see it going up into like +1 dB. That I can live with. It's not too much. I might split the difference and just bring that down 0.4 dB, which might be better in general for stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit more. Try to avoid this section that's loud. Good. Okay, so now I can start addressing the EQ, which I've already done. I have this shaving off the low end up to 208 hertz, which is actually, kind of getting closer to the mids, or like the low mids. But yeah, I do have it cutting up until then. That bass tone is a little bit thick. So there's that. A little boost at the 100 there of, well, I touched a little bit. We'll call it, 1.2 dB. 400 hertz is rolled out a little bit on this. 2K rolled out, and I left the high end at 0. Okay, so basically what you're hearing is a pretty mid-heavy bass tone, right? There's not, I mean, there's obviously going to be some low tones, but probably more mid tones than I think a lot of people understand is required in a bass part. Okay, those low mids are totally essential to getting a good, powerful bass guitar part. Something that not only supports the kick drum, but is also able to stay separated from it. You know what I mean? If it's all that same sonic range as the kick drum, it's just going to get lost every time that kick drum hits, right? So you want to make sure that there's enough mids in that bass tone to, you know, ride on top of that kick drum sound. Okay, so that's pretty key. So anyway, so now the EQ is done, and I'm just going to start addressing the compressor. Wrong way. Okay, so that's basically it. You just watch me do it. So I typically tend to compress very little on a bass. You can see here, I'm only going up to about 5 dB on the meter here. Right? And I have a pretty slow release. It's not very fast. It's not very slow. Pretty fast attack. Not very, but, you know, medium attack. So it's primarily capturing just the loudest notes. That's what I wanted this compressor to do. The low notes are pretty much even, but there are a few that poke out that needed a little bit of taming. So I have the attack set, you know, like I said, sort of medium. And the release is, again, also sort of medium, and it's pretty high in the mix. It's like around 60%, pretty normal, because I like the sound of this particular vintage preamp, or I'm sorry, compressor rather. So yeah, I tend to turn this up a little bit. I just like the way it sounds. High pass chain is on, and circuit 1, pretty simple stuff. Okay, so now here's what I'm going to do. And understanding that I can do this, there's nothing on this guitar, but I can come over here and I can look for acoustic guitar slated. See? And I click on it, and it drops in all my favorite plugins for acoustic guitars. And I'm just going to do that sort of in general on both of these. I'm going to turn off the reverb because my reverb is turned up high on these presets. I need to change it. But anyway, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to listen to the drum track. Oh, so we're going to start with this being set to 0 dB. Okay, just hit this, set this to 0. Don't touch it. I have to have this turned down right here for my video editor, but you should have this at 0 dB. And if you come down here to the basic master track, this should also be set to 0. Okay, so this is set to 0. This is set to 0. On yours, not on mine today. And this drum channel set to 0. All of them set to 0, okay? So this is what I was talking about in that last video. We're going to mix around the drums. We're using the drum sort of as the thing we're focusing on, just to make sure that there's always enough drums in the mix, okay? You can trust these sounds. They are good. You don't even need to EQ them if you don't want to. All right, so anyway, here we go. Let's just push play. So I'm going to slowly start bringing in the bass. And when I'm doing this, when I'm working on the bass, I'm listening to the volume of the bass compared to the volume of the kick drum, right? Those are the two that they're going to work together throughout the entire song. So they have to, you know, agree on what's going on level-wise. So let's just keep going. Okay, so that's too much, right? So this might have been where you're like, oh, come on, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. But by my standard, I would say this is too much. Somewhere around there sounds pretty good. Okay, so now let's do the guitar. We'll go back to the top. Actually going to switch my monitors here to my big ones. Okay, so this is what I'm doing now. I'm slowly bringing these things in. So let's look at this guitar tone. Okay, so one thing is on these presets of mine that I typically have too many things open. So I try to, I will eliminate like one of these preamps. So like in this case, I'm going to get rid of this guy because I think that tone has enough mid-range. This is more of a warming effect. Around 40 dB is where this thing starts really making a difference. And I don't, I could try to sit here and make you hear that difference, but that's not what this video is about. I'm going to keep this particular, let's see, I want to use the more vintage Neve EQ on this, and I do have it just set up to acoustic guitar 1, which is one of their presets. It's a nice starting place. Feel like that compressor is hitting a little hard. Ratio down to 4:1, and probably the attack down to about 3. Yeah. It's holding on a little long, so I'm going to basically do the same thing here. It's hitting still too much compression. Okay. Might be a little thin, so I'm going to bring this up to around 100 and try to get some of that low end coming in. Okay, so here's one thing I do want to show you. So I just got rid of that EQ just to show you that I can bring in multiple EQs at a time, right? So in this particular case, I want to start bringing out the 200 hertz. So I'm going to actually just use this EQ to do that. I could have brought this one in, but whatever. This one has a 200 notch. So I can just come here and start turning it down. If you're working on acoustic guitars, it's always this 200 hertz range that is the biggest issue, I think, when I'm recording acoustic guitars. This 200 hertz thing, that's where all the tubbiness that you don't want lives. It's in that 200 range. A lot of instruments have this problem. Anyway, but yeah, 200. All right, I think that sounds pretty good for now. So let's look at the second guitar. And in this case, I'm actually going to put this at 0. 0 on the panning, I meant to say. So once again, I'm going to drop this guy out. I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to come back over to this guy. And I'm just going to shut this guy out of the picture all the way. And we're going to turn this off. So this is the guitar with the capo. So this isn't going to need as much low end, right? Which is good because there's not a lot to begin with. But, like I said in the previous mixing video that I made years and years ago, acoustic guitars, especially in a big mix like this, like a pop rock song, whatever, folky rock, whatever, an acoustic guitar, which has electric guitars, bass and drums and all sorts of things around it, doesn't need to sound like a beautifully warm, rich acoustic guitar, right? What it's doing is serving as a rhythm guitar. So it's really, you're looking for that pick sound a lot. You want that almost like a shaker is what I said in the last mixing series, sort of like a shaker element, where you do maintain that rhythmic element of the instrument, okay? So you don't want to drown the low or drown out the high end of your instruments. You want them to be nice and pronounced with good amount of presence, which isn't like sharp and brittle, because it can be easy to add too much high end to acoustic guitars and make them sound awful, right? So whenever you're EQing, and you should be noticing that the way I'm doing it, it's very, very minimally, right? I'm just trying to accentuate a little bit here and there. I have made a video on a thing called EQing at the source. which is basically about, before you push record, make sure that the microphone's in the right place. Don't be lazy about that and think, I'll fix it later. Get it sounding good as you possibly can before you hit record, and it'll make your mixing life so much easier, you guys. So that's why I'm able to EQ just a little tiny bit, because I was making sure at the beginning that, it sounded good as it was getting recorded. So. Okay, so let's turn the compressor on now. And now I will say this, for higher acoustic guitars, me personally, I do like the acoustic guitar to pump a little bit harder. So the compression isn't exactly transparent, but it's not really noticeable, but I do like it to have sort of a pumping effect. So I will use the ratio at 8:1 down here. And I will keep the attack pretty fast because I want it to hit, and I don't want it to hold on that long. So I'm going to reduce, but I do want the compressor to be there fast. That's with it off. Okay, so hopefully you're hearing that little slight pumping of the compression. I just find that as a good method to help separate two separate acoustic guitar tracks, especially if one is higher than the other, and you want them to have slightly different positions in the mix. It's a pretty simple thing and very much up to you. So we're going to put this guy at -20. I'm going to type that in, and we're going to put this guy at 20. Bam. And that way, I always like typing in my panning control increments because it's a lot easier to type them in. All right, so let's listen to the bass, drums, and guitars now. Okay, so right off the bat, too much of the high guitar. So I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so far so good. All right, so these are all vocals, and I'm going to just leave them down here, and I'm going to drag all of the instruments up. Organizing your projects, you guys, you have to organize your projects. Make sure that the guitar parts are all together, bass parts, whatever. Just keep your instrument parts together. And like a lot of times I'll get mixes from you guys. Don't forget, I do mix songs for people. Garageband&beyond.com. Anyway, keep your stuff organized. Make sure that the vocals are all categorized properly and all that kind of stuff, because it just makes your life easier when you go back and start doing what I'm doing now. Here's a couple of things I can just delete. These are bad ideas that I had. I can get rid of that. This was an old take, which I no longer need. I can get rid of that, and I'm going to keep that. Okay, so now the fun stuff is some organ. And again, this is something I have a preset for, Hammond high and Hammond low. And so that's it. These are the presets that I have. And we're going to start bringing in the Hammond. Let's go to the beginning. Okay. Let's listen to this Hammond by itself. Oh, that's so good. So just so you know, if you watched the Hammond video, this is going to be the SM57 on the left. This is the SM57 on the right. And this is that CAD ribbon mic, which I love, the D82, I think it is. This is the CAD ribbon microphone on the Fender, just getting the low end. So let's listen to this. Okay. I usually do put a lot of reverb on this. I'll let you look at the EQ and stuff. This guy's already been done pretty much. Okay, so let's slowly bring it all in with the mix. Okay, so as I'm bringing all of this stuff in, I want to hammer this point home. I'm always listening to the drums, okay? I'm always listening to the snare. I'm always listening to the kick, and I'm always listening to the hi-hat or whatever. It could be the ride that I need to pay attention to, but whatever the biggest components are, I don't pay attention much to things like fills, like the volumes of fills don't, concern me as much as the regular parts, okay? So I'm just want to hammer that home. Don't mess with the drums. Just leave them how they are and work around them. Okay, I think that's sounding pretty good. Now, one thing I did record and didn't talk to you guys about was this right here, which is just a Wurlitzer piano sound. It's yet another one of those sounds that I think you can trust. I did add some of the virtual mixer stuff on here, but I didn't have to. You guys, when you use stuff like the Rhodes or the Wurlitzer sounds, there's not much that needs to be done. I did it just because I have the ability to, but if you don't, this is definitely one of those sounds that you can trust. I just wanted to give it slightly different treatment, which isn't a huge difference, but you know how picky we engineers can be. So this is the part. Right, it's got a little Hall & Oates to it. Right, pretty basic Wurlitzer part. So anyway, we're gonna slowly dial that guy in. And for me, this particular sound with the tremolo turned all the way up, a little bit of the phaser on, some decent amount of reverb and whatnot. This sound in particular, I usually use it mostly for that tremolo effect, and a little bit of the phaser. That sort of swirliness of it is the thing that I think is the coolest part of this tone. So I don't really try to hear so much of the keyboard. I mean, obviously we want to hear some of it, but really what I'm focusing on personally is that effect. Okay, I think that sounds about right. Okay, so now the last two things here are going to be the electric guitars. Clean echoes, yet another thing. I'm not going to touch this sound at all. I didn't do much. I might have, let's take a look. One of the things I do, yes, I will move this microphone a little bit. Just so you know, the closer you are to the center of the speaker, the more high end you get. To go out to the outside, more low end you get. Let's just solo this, and I can prove that to you by simply playing it. Right, a pretty noticeable difference. It's mostly up in the super high end stuff. It's not really doing too much below that, but it is just removing some of the high end. So I usually split the difference, and I will just put that there. Typically I will bring up the presence a little bit, but in general, this doesn't need very much tweaking at all, if any, depending on your mix, right? This is a trustworthy sound, clean echoes. So let's just go back to where it starts. Okay, so I think that sounds pretty good level-wise. One thing you should all be noticing is that, nothing in my individual channels is going into the red. Okay. I talk about that all the time. Don't go into the distorting levels because that is not going to help you at all. The thing that I think helps the most, as far as that kind of stuff is concerned, is especially here where I have these controls. This thing right here, this virtual channel, I can't tell you how many times it has helped me solve issues with signals that have been recorded too low or too hot, right? It's just so nice to have a control and a meter. Just get the Everything plugins, you guys. That Everything plugin package or whatever it's called, Everything bundle, so worth it. Just get it and thank me later. Use it sparingly. They do become a little bit heavy if you use every single channel has the virtual tape machine or something. That thing is really, really heavy processing power wise. So don't go overboard with the plugins on every single channel. Okay, so the last thing we need to do for this video is the electric guitar. And that's right here. And I'm, again, using a sound I do not affect, stadium spread. I might have dialed out some of the reverb, but I kind of doubt it because I love that sound. Okay, so one thing you should hear already is that this signal is a little bit noisy because it's a hot, this particular preset has a ton of gain in it. So you can hear all that gain. So we're going to turn the noise gate on. Here's something I've never talked about on my channel, the noise gate. The noise gate is really simple. It will close the gate when there is no recorded noise, like with the noise we want, right? This is noise we don't want. So we're going to just turn that off. Usually up there, -40. Let's see where we are. All right, so now we're gonna say this is where I think is good, but I'm gonna listen to it in reference to the mix because I want to make sure that it's not closing too early, especially at this moment right here where it's going nice and long, where we do want that sustained note, but it might be holding on long enough. Let's listen. I'm going to say no, it didn't hold on long enough. So let's solo that again. And we're going to bring this down to, let's say, 45. Okay, up into that little slide. I bet that's good because I wanted that slide sound. Good. Okay, so now that gate is functioning properly. So on the point of the gate, I do want to talk about cleaning up your tracks and these little areas where there's nothing, right? So in here, if the gate wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, I could probably just edit a lot of that dead space out. But it's tougher to get it in the middle without totally screwing it up. So that's what's nice about the gate is that it closes and opens in a soft manner. Whereas if you just cut it out, it's like clunk, cut, right? So sometimes the gate will cut too short or too fast and it won't work the way you want it to, in which case automation would probably be the thing. But in this case, the gate is working. But let's look at like the top right here, right? Right, all this information up here. This is all dead air. Right, there's like sounds of me getting set up and whatnot. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna grab these guys here and let's just roll it back a little bit before. Looks like something's here. Can look at it here. There we go. Okay, so this looks like where this pick is starting to hit the string is right here. So I'm going to actually get that sound because that's good sound. And I can go. Oh, what is that? What is that I'm looking at? Oh, that's the bass now. Here's the guitar that I was just looking at, and here's the other guitar part, okay? So you do want that initial sound, but anyway, I'm going to select these three, Command T cuts them. Now I can grab this and bam, delete. Nice and clean at the top. I'm going to do the same thing here at the vocal while I can. We're just going to come down here and hope that this thing is about the same. Yep, that looks all the same. I'm going to cut these. Command T, grab that, delete. Now the intro is nice and dead silent, okay? Nothing there. Right? Now, okay. This is a long ass video, I know, I'm sorry. Anyway, so there is one issue here. This kick drum is playing at a different point than this. So we need to expand. Make sure that we're right on that kick drum. We're going to come down here to the bass part. And I have it already having the flex markers on. So I'm just going to grab this and boom, I'm going to do that. Come down to the guitar part. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look how far forward that is. That's a little embarrassing. So let's just, we're going to dump. No, we don't need to, I don't think. Yeah, we don't need this one. We can just use the first one. Oh no, we do. Why is it? Get rid of that. Oh, it's still. Okay, we'll just pull this one then. So I think here is where I want it to be. Yeah. Oh boy, we have a lot to pull this back. So we're going to yank it to about there. And we're going to bring this back to there. And then we just want that to basically look normal. Understanding that the hottest point of this is actually pretty much what I'm looking for. Meaning like this high point is pretty much where it should be. Let's go down to the guitar capo. Another big incorrect thing. We're going to drop that and we're going to yank this guy back. Hopefully this works for the video. Sometimes this is something that needs a lot of fine tuning. And especially with guitar sounds, don't forget that there is sort of an initial drum sound or strum sound that you need to accommodate. It's always going to come a little bit before the beat. If you get that initial pick on the string right on the beat, then the actual strum will be slightly behind. So make sure that you are accounting for that pick stroke, which hopefully I've done. Let's take a listen. That sounded pretty good. Not exactly natural, but on the beat, right? That's not bad though. Better than it was. What I might do, I felt like I could hear a little more. I would rather hear a little strum of this. And let's yank this a little bit like that. The nice thing is that it will gray out when you're, outside of like an audible, or when you're getting close to an audible change in the thing. So I'm going to yank this way a little bit and then this. See, there it turns gray. So I know that it's going to sound weird. If I bring it back to the white, then I should be good. There we go. So now I can hear that ring of the upper guitar part. Right? Pretty simple. So now my So now my intro is nice and tight on that very, very first hit. That's one of those really simple things that a lot of people sort of overlook, but it's important. You don't want that first hit to be sloppy, which mine was. But anyway, that's it, you guys. So I think in general, the mix is sounding pretty good. And next week, we will be talking about vocals. But overall, the one thing I can continue to hear, the kick and the snare, no matter what, I can still hear the drums, you guys. So we're in good shape because I can hear all of the instruments. Some fine tuning in the automation might need to happen. We will talk about that when we get to the automation point, which is something I typically do at the end of the process. But this is what I do first. I get those basic tracks. I get all the instrument rhythm tracks, all those instrument tracks going first, generally sounding good. And now I will start introducing the vocals, and we will do that next week. I'm also going to start doing product reviews again next week. We're going to try to get those out on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I haven't decided. I'm trying on Tuesday, but we'll see. Anyway, products reviews coming back out next week, plus another mixing session next week, so you guys stick around for all of that. As always, I fully appreciate the fact that you sit here and watch these videos that I make for you guys for completely free. It's so cool. You guys like it. I like doing it. You're getting an education. I'm having fun doing it, and I'm helping people make good music at home. That's awesome. So you guys, I appreciate you watching. That's it. Feel free to subscribe, hit the like and share and all that kind of stuff if you want to. Otherwise, just sit around, watch all the other videos here on my channel, and waste as much time as you can here at Garageband and beyond. It's not really a waste of time. You're learning. It's good stuff. All right, you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.